Welcome back to another episode of Demons and Gentlemen. I am TattedAlpha. To my right, as always,
Gregory. Just Greg.
This week's episode, it's Halloween week, so my favorite fucking time of year. Thank God. It's also finally gotten colder enough for us to start wearing some fall shit and looking like our dapper selves.
I love it. No, fall time's my favorite time of year.
I'm a whore for fall time.
I'm a slut for fall smells.
You're a slut in general.
Mind your business.
No, I digress. But so today's episode, we're going to talk about, and the title is the Cost of Immortality. Now we're going to dive into that. We're going to break it down. We're going to challenge you, and we're going to question you. We're going to ask you, is immortality real? Obviously, it's not real. But if it were,
that's it, though.
If it were, we're going to start there. So if immortality were real, first off, let's pose it as, would you use it for, would it be, I'm going to just start at the bottom of mine and everything. Would it be a blessing or a curse if immortality were real? If you were immortal?
It's a great question because, I mean, honestly, I think it could be both, because like if you were around for 1,000 years and you're really dealing with the same problems, it's not that long. No, but I mean, if you're dealing, I
can do that in my sleep,
right? Yeah, sure. And your sleep is exactly the right place.
Dreaming,
but but like 1,000 years, right? Like dealing with the same repetitive shit over and over and over again. You'd live all of those different centuries, millenniums, whatever you want to call it. The problems in itself would probably essentially be the same. They would all just look different, but you would have the opportunity to live many different lives and lifestyles.
Yeah. I think what would be interesting about it would be, let's just say you live for 1,000. I mean, you're here for 1,000 plus years, right? But in those 1,000 years, even if you started now, at our age, we became immortal like a vampire, so to speak, right? From now, 2025 to 2125 to 2225, every 100 years or so, right?
Yeah. How
society changes, but how, what you said, the problems are still
how would you be
same.
To navigate?
And then, that's where I think it would be interesting.
That shit would be hard, I bet.
It would be like, essentially, they would always deal with the same sort of societal problems and regulations and everything. They're still going to have that sort of construct and confinement and everything in how they're governed and how people are able to operate and navigate on a day-to-day, right? But the problems, like you said, for the most part, are going to be similar. It's just in what capacity is that time period going to be evolved in a sense to now.
Yeah.
And it's not so much like the growth and structure of it, you know, flying cars and shit like that, but as people.
Yeah. Well, it would also depend on if humans knew or not.
That too.
It is, right? Because like if humans knew, that's going to make you operate a little bit of a different way. They're going to be more aware of what you were. Let's, like, if we were vampires, you and me, if humans knew about us, instead of being naive about to it, would even being a vampire even be something that you'd want to do? Or how would you navigate? I think ultimately it would make it harder.
We'll just stick to the two for now.
Yeah.
Would you rather be a vampire or a werewolf?
Vampire.
Why?
Just because werewolves can die. I mean,
so can vampires.
I mean, like from a life standpoint, like we can both die. I think I said that wrong. I'd rather be immortal.
You'd rather be a vampire where your only way you could die is stake through the heart.
Yeah.
Like werewolf, you have that ability to die in your human form and or werewolf
or
form.
of just old age because they're not immortal.
Because they don't live forever.
Yeah.
Okay, that's valid.
Yeah. I think being a werewolf would be cool. I think they are badass.
I was about to say.
I just don't think that
I would prefer to be a vampire because with time comes, a sense of maturity, a sense of stability and everything because you're around for so long. And the strength and everything, and the way that you're, you know, kind of you hold yourself together and everything, being a vampire. Now, here's the tricky part with that. You know, it's Halloween and everything, right? But there have been many movies, TV shows, books, comic books, whatever, to talk about vampires.
Mm-hmm.
I think the key on whether or not I would be a vampire and or werewolf to choose would be in what context. Because if you take vampires like in Vampirediaries, they have witches can cast spells and everything to make them survive during the day. Any other sense of movie or TV show, vampires can't roam during the day.
Mm-hmm.
You're a night creature. You only can operate at that time.
That's a good point.
That changes it.
So it does change it a bit because I love the sun on my skin, and so I would be a vampire as long as I could go out in the daytime.
Yeah.
If I was a night hawk or a creature, I don't know that I could do that.
But here's the double edge to that is a werewolf. You essentially are a werewolf all at night because it's under the presumption of a full moon.
Mm-hmm.
So either way, unless it's that key element of where you have a daylight ring or totem to be able to operate 24/7 as a vampire, either way, both, if you're under that presumption, are nighttime creatures.
Mm-hmm.
So then you can only be essentially yourself in that form at night. I think that puts a totally different twist on it.
Yeah,
we're kind of spoiled a little bit with the Vampirediaries and the daylight rings and everything, and now
it's a different take.
It's a different world. It's a different take. So I think that makes it interesting.
It is. No, I honestly thinking about it from that lane is actually interesting because I had never thought about it like that. I guess now what I think is bullshit is werewolves entirely, and almost every reference to the word, they're weaker than vampires. Vampires are faster, stronger, live longer.
Except in Van Helsing.
Except for in that one, yes.
It's the only time where they're not.
It's right.
I agree with that. Werewolves are actually superior to the vampires in that one.
Which makes sense. Now, what I think is bullshit is how it's usually reversed, though. Mm-hmm. And my thing is there's got to be a balance of the scale. Like, right? So that's why, like, werewolves are toxic to vampires. You can't, they don't really mesh well. But my thing is like, what about, like, a prime werewolf? Like, and I'm talking, like, sweet age spot. Like, we're talking a kid or a young adult from, like, 15 who might not be as wise yet, but in peak physical performance.
It's strongest.
It's strongest.
Most physical.
Like, you mean to tell me... Like I don't know. I just wish that there was, like, an extra layer to the terminology where, like, listen, that's an old werewolf. We're faster than them. We're probably stronger than them. We're good. But, like, these are the ones you don't want to fuck with, especially right now, because they're peak. And, like, that peak lasts for a long time. More maybe prime is what I'm looking for, like a prime time slot for being just the most badass version of yourself. Not saying that the years and the knowledge and the wisdom couldn't keep them in a badass state. However, that's the one lane about it that actually drives me bonkers when we're, like, watching it, and, like, you kind of reference the two.
Well, just to kind of tie everything into, spooky season and Halloween and everything like that, let's I want to dive a little bit deeper, and here's something else, and I'm gonna pose this question and then kind of make some relevance to day-to-day life and everything as fucking weak-ass mortal humans.
Yeah.
Fuck you vampires, you lucky son of bitches. So if you're a vampire, right, to survive, you need blood. As a werewolf, essentially same thing. You need blood in a sense. You have to feast and eat as a werewolf to survive and feed. Your hunger is heightened times 1,000 and everything. So... and then there's the transformation part of everything and turning into a werewolf and everything, whatever form that may be. We've been spoiled with some of these movies, like we just referenced Van Helsing, and then Vampirediaries, they turn into an actual, like, wolf. Van Helsing turned into giant. There's different facets. So take that part away or whatever. Essentially, you break it down at base level. Vampires need to feed on blood to survive, and a werewolf needs to feed a lot to survive and maintain its strength. which would be easier to do?
The werewolf side, for sure.
You think?
Yeah.
You have to feed. I mean, mind you. So
Well,
normally,
I guess
for
feed
us,
on what?
we have to feed just what you would need to, people, things, whatever,
Mhm.
meat, whatever, doesn't matter.
I guess it's a
But
good point. What
for
do
us,
they feed on?
Us
'Cause
is 3
typically we don't
times a
see
day,
that.
right?
Yeah.
That usually is enough to satisfy our hunger and maintain our strength and mind and everything like that. Let's just to throw a number out there. As a werewolf, you would have to feed 20 times a day. That's a lot.
Fair, but so I guess the counter is, if we're setting the scene, is as a human, I could eat my 3 meals a day before I turn. So if I turn, do I need to go feed at all?
But you're still a werewolf. Inside, you may have your human form, but you, as a werewolf, and even in all the shows and movies and everything like that,
Yeah.
you still have to make your hunger is heightened and everything. That's one of the traits of being immortal.
Yeah.
So even in your human form, you still have to eat. I'm just saying, as humans, we typically only need to eat 3 times a day.
Mhm.
But you're a werewolf, you need to eat, whether you're human form or werewolf form, 20 times a day.
20
Right?
oh,
That's
shit.
a lot. Doesn't matter, human form, werewolf form. Vampires, you need a lot of blood and stuff to survive, right? But it's not necessarily, I wouldn't think, as extreme for a werewolf. But here's the psychological part is werewolf, I think you could get around not feeding on people and
Yeah.
things like that, or feasting on people or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So psychologically,
Easy.
it's not going to be as detrimental to you.
I mean, what do wolves feast on? They probably hunt deer.
A lot of meat and everything, deer,
Cows.
animals, rabbits, whatever.
Yeah, we could easy.
You got to
Easy.
fight to survive. Would that
Easy.
be as tasty as probably the vampire route? No. Now, here's where I think we're spoiled when it comes to the vampire route is Vampirediaries, for example, blood bags.
Blood bags, yeah.
That's probably really the only scene and reference in vampires not feeding on humans entirely.
Yeah.
Is that.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting concept. But, obviously that's in our brains and that's in our thoughts. But I think psychologically to be a vampire, because here's the other piece of that. We talk about it being around for such a long time. You have to deal with that.
Yeah.
And carry it. Now, granted, you're immortal. And then this is where Vampirediaries throws you off a lot, too, is because of the emotion side. You can turn it off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but then if that's your normal, like to me, see, so that...
But it has to become normal. You have to fight through that
yeah,
psychological...
at first, right?
And I have a point to all this.
That's if you, turned or transitioned, right? But, after a while, if that's your normal, things have changed. Now... That's why I asked earlier, do humans know? Because this would ultimately decide how you would maneuver and operate.
True.
Because if they knew, then, right, we wouldn't be a welcome species. It would be they're not allowed here. Because as everyone knows it, humans rule all. But if, vampires were accepted and appreciated, then we might not be able to feast as easily. So that's the thing, is... Do they know or do they not know?
I think that argument would be, I think that argument would be interesting on both sides, because if they did know,
it would
obviously
be for sure.
They're not going to want them to be around. But
right.
If they didn't know, and let's just say vampires have been amongst you forever, and they built the town that you're on, and then also they're a fucking vampire. What's a human gonna do in regards to a vampire? Your laws, your physicality,
Nothing.
you're not gonna be able to deal with it. You're not gonna be able to handle the situation in a regard to where you could.
I mean, not with the speed and the strength and the shiftiness and the craftiness. Not unless you're dealing with one of those badass types of humans, right? But to your point, I definitely think that it's an interesting concept all the way around.
So the reason why I asked and everything is to kind of tie it back into the reality of our everyday, and immortality is not being real, but if the construct and the idea the premise were, we could be immortal, we could be a vampire or a werewolf and everything like that. How would that change our lives? Would it change our lives? And we already asked the question, would it be better or worse? But would that be beneficial? Would that make the things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis more worth it, less worth it? Would they matter as much?
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, we sit here and we go through our hardships. We go through our trials. We have our ups. We have our downs. And, you know, we have our days where we have that inner dialogue and, you know, are we doing what we need to do, taking care of what we need to take care of? And, you know, you and me sit here and we have those conversations,
Mm-hmm.
you know, how are you doing and things, and we have our check-ins. Would it matter as much if immortality were a thing? If immortality were a factor for us at our disposal, at our fingertips, do you think that a lot of that stuff loses its weight and value, or do you think it becomes more valuable because now you're immortal?
Mm-hmm.
So now we operate on the premise that tomorrow is not promised. An hour from now is not promised. But now you live forever. Yeah. Obviously, vampire more so than werewolf, but we're just talking about immortality as a construct.
Yeah. I mean, I think I have two answers, honestly. So one, I think it makes you kind of wonder, like in your current life without immortality, do you want to live every single moment and second to the fullest? And do
as a human,
and do we take it for granted?
Oh, I think we take it for granted all the time.
That's for sure.
The tangent.
Yeah, we could go on a huge side quest there, but it makes me wonder, like, I think what is so thrilling about being a human is we know that there's an end date. Like, we're not going to be around forever, so we try to do as much as we can with the time clock set for us, not knowing how long that clock is going to run and tick for, right? Whatever parallels and universes or powers that be, they know how long our clocks are going to tick, but we don't. So my thing is like, are we taking for granted the life? And it also makes it, more exciting. Hey, let's live. Like, what are the things that you do that make you feel good? Live it up. And enjoy it.
Then there's
within reason, right?
The emotional piece to it, and like our emotions tied into, like let's just say skydiving.
Sure,
your parachute could fail, whatever. It's exhilarating. It's you're basically giving yourself the opportunity to potentially cut it short,
right?
For lack of a better term, not to be morbid or nothing, but morbidity. Just as an example, like the chute could fail. You could not land. Or even if the chute doesn't fail, you guide it in the wrong place, or whatever. And it just, you cause a chaos. You create a stir and a riff in the vortex or whatever. And ultimately, you change your own path. You change your own course.
Yeah.
But then there's the flip side of it, that it ends up all going fucking well. But throughout that whole process, there's that potential. There's that risk that's involved where if you would come out of this unscathed, unharmed, and no different than before, it was exhilarating as fuck, and you were on an emotional high, because of the outcome.
Yeah, I think, so for me, if immortality were a thing, I think if I were immortal, I would be more spontaneous than I am. I'm not a very spontaneous person. I'm pretty regimented and routine-based. I think if I was immortal, I would just say, fuck the routine. And I would just live my life. Because now I have an opportunity to live many different versions of a life. Hell, this 100 years, I could be dedicated to this and live life this way, and then I could go live life another way, the next 100, whatever. But I think like I would be more spontaneous as an immortal than I would be now. And that is kind of where it gets tricky, because now I'm like, as a human and without immortality, I care a lot about like safety and security because I love life. I want to be able to enjoy all of those things, right, that are out there. I want to travel. I want to enjoy a good drink on a Friday. I want to have a good meal with my friends. I love spending time with my family. I want to kick my feet up and watch a football game on a Sunday. Like, those are things that I love to do. Now, are all of those things, do they feel the same if you're immortal?
It's interesting that you bring that up because that was actually one of my points was the phrasing of this, because there's no real good way to phrase this question.
Yeah.
But it's essentially, can you be immortal while being mortal? And then I put parentheses under that, your mind and your thoughts. So essentially, obviously, immortality is just a thought, a notion that of what could be in a fantasy world, right? But you sit there and you reference, if I were immortal, I would essentially have more freedom to be who I want, be how I want, do what I want, when I want, where I want, and everything. It makes life a lot easier, which albeit we all have to live within the confines of our finances and our situations on where we are and what we have access to, being able to travel and certain experiences we have ease of access to versus others, like where we are not too far from the beach, mountains, we can do certain things. But that plays a factor in being mortal and things like that, all those variables or whatever. But variables are always going to be there. So let's just take it at face value. We can't be immortal in our souls. But what's to stop us in our mind and our thoughts and how we live day to day from being, quote unquote, immortal? Yeah. Living with that free will, living with that idea and construct that we can do these things and be multiple versions of ourselves. Because I think if you dive into that too, we're always evolving and changing. We live, we learn, things happen to us, things happen in our families where, whether it be loss, whether it be, a stir and stuff in the friendships and things like that. Like we went through a rift several years ago and worked through that. So I think it becomes an interesting concept of,
to me, that sounds like you just have to live a little fearlessly.
You do. It's more so
like it's kind of just, it is, right? It's like just soak up your life. Like that thing you want to go do, right?
You
go
keep
do
yourself in this box versus, dabble your feet in the water a little bit. Don't be afraid to sink. And you don't know how deep it is or whatever, that analogy where you have this body of water in front of you and it could be 2 inches deep, it could be 200 feet deep, and you take one step and it could be the end or not the end. It's we tend to, because we're so mortal and everything, and I only phrase all this and everything this way just to try and bring it back to reality a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
And we're having a little fun with it, but it makes it interesting.
No, it does.
Concept of it is.
No, I agree, because to me, like I teased at it a little earlier, but like I can be pretty regimented and routine based, and there's plenty of things out there in the world that I want to do. And there are things where, like, because I know that they might not be, like, the safest thing in the world. Like, for example, you've been trying to convince me to get a motorcycle for some time. But I bet riding...
Tell him. Do it.
I bet riding on that thing, like you said, taking a ride on the motorcycle, like going into the mountains during the fall when the weather's cooler and all that, I can only imagine what that's like because I've never done it. I think that would be beautiful. And I bet that would be so thrilling and a lot of fun. Where that triggers in my mind is like, oh, well, motorcycles aren't the safest thing in the world. An accident happens, I could be toast. But then on the flip side of that, I could also have one of the best moments of my whole life. And so the concept of we're mortal but live with the mind of an immortal, it kind of in its own weird way is a challenge to just kind of say, hey, we got one go at this life. And even if you don't do it all the time, like, why don't you just get out there and do it? Because why not? Why the hell not? And like
so then why the hell have you not gotten a motorcycle?
It's not that I wouldn't get one. I literally, like, as I just said.
All right, we're going to end this episode early. We're going to the bike shop.
When I put my rational cap on And I'm not saying the concept is irrational either. I think it's a great thought. And honestly, it has my wheels over here spinning. When I put that cap on, though, I think about who it could impact if I'm not around. And like the risks that it brings to my life. Like that's where I think that it comes into play. That's why I think even like to kick it back to a step where we were before, the mortal versus immortal conversation, like I said, maybe I would live a little bit more freely and spontaneously because of if I got a motorcycle and I fell off that bitch, I wouldn't die.
Okay, so we'll keep it in the confines of Halloween and whatnot. So immortality is out of it.
Yeah.
It's not even an idea. It's not
Sure.
even a thought. You're Batman.
I am Batman. Don't clip that. That's horrible.
I'm clipping that. Do you get a motorcycle then? Oh, you're probably more Robin, but you know.
No.
I'm not saying I'm Batman over you. I'm just saying you're probably more Robin.
Why do I give Robin? Let's ask. Let me ask that.
There's, I mean, you look like Robin.
Do I? Because
moment.
Batman is pretty suave outside of the suit. Yeah.
You do give me a lot of Robin vibes, though. But
Eat crow.
But let's be honest. When we talk about Robin, we're probably specifically referencing the, for me at least, it's Val Kilmer first. Val Kilmer and Robin.
Yeah.
Because that's when Robin was first introduced. Not necessarily George Clooney Robin.
Sure.
At least, whatever. I think that Robin. So
sure.
You give me a lot of similarities to that guy specifically, which might be part of the issue here. The guy that played him.
Oh.
So it's probably partially why. But I could
Fair
also
enough.
see you in that suit. The red and green would work for you versus the black Batman suit with the yellow belt.
Fair. I mean, I guess there's only one way to find out.
He also rode a motorcycle though, so I don't know if you could be him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that I would be against riding a motorcycle. Honestly, I'd definitely get one, and I would definitely ride one.
I think it would be interesting to look up the statistics. You know, with you traveling so much, are there more car accidents? Which probably there are, because there's more people on the road with cars than motorcycles. So,
well, yeah, but it's automatically going to be
and
skewed.
everything too, with all these other things that you do for travel and whatnot. I think it would be interesting to see what the statistics are on. Obviously, there's risk and reward with everything. You walk out that door, lightning could strike you. Like, very few and far between, and we don't think about it or worry about it.
I mean, anything could happen. So, I mean, basically what I'm hearing is we just got to live this life to the fullest.
Stop being a bitch.
Bitch. You're right.
Puta.
Yeah, no, you're right. I would get one. It's due to some unforeseen circumstances.
There are no unforeseen circumstances.
There are some hurdles in the way at the moment.
Hurdles.
All right, fuck it. Let's go to the bike shop. You want to end this here?
Go to the bike shop. All right, see you later.
I could buy this in cash. Bye. No, I would get one. I'd ride one, and I think it would be cool. I think ultimately, though, kind of to what I was saying a few minutes ago, is it's just I know that there's risk involved, so that's kind of really what prohibits me about it, like from going to buy one.
You know, bringing up the whole, not to change the subject off the bikes or whatever, but, you know, talking about Batman and immortality not being a thing, right? There's an interesting concept with that, too, to touch on the human nature and mortality side of it, like we were a minute ago. But do you think being a Batman, in a sense, you know, wealthy, you have a sort of social status and things like that, do you think that allows him to operate in a different, less, you know, risk-reward kind? His risk-reward's more with money, so we're not going to talk about that. But it allows him to operate in a less, or in a more of a free kind of capacity than we would in an everyday sense, you know, with the risk-reward and the living life to the fullest and everything because of his status and being who he is.
100%. Because
so then that right there makes the mortality. So he in a sense has his cloak of immortality based on his financials and his status and everything that he had built for himself, the wealth that he has, the status of his name and what it brings and carries.
Well, yeah, because the more you have, the more resources you have.
True.
And so when he has all those resources, one, he can be a little more carefree. Two, he can put his body in harm's way, because if it doesn't work out, he's got the tools and the capability behind the scenes to fix some of that stuff.
So I make that point not to harp on the fact that Batman's loaded or anything. More so, what I think we don't talk about a lot as people is you can be wealthy, you and me can be wealthy, money aside, in how you choose to live your life, the people you have around you, and you surround yourself with, and what you do for yourself and for those around you, right? So their wealth is usually 10 times out of 10 talked about in terms of a dollar amount or a currency or whatever. Yeah. But I think wealth, where it holds more weight and more value, is in your everyday life of how you live, who's in your corner, and what you choose to do with the time that you have.
Sure.
That's where you have wealth. And I think that tends to be overlooked a lot in society.
Well, let's talk about that for a few minutes, because I actually think that it's a good opportunity for us to kind of let the walls down a little bit and talk about that. I think I'm one of those interesting people who falls on both sides of the fence with this one. I'm not going to say that I'm probably a 60-40, maybe even a 70-30 split between materialistic and not. And honestly, I think where I would separate myself from most is I own it. A lot of people don't own it. Like, to me, I will own that. And I will say, yeah, like, I think that in order to experience the things in this world and in this life that you really want to do, you got to have money to do it. And you got to have a little bit. Because if you don't, you're not really going to be able to do much. You can surround yourself with whoever you want. And if you're happy with that, I'm never going to shade that. If you don't have it and you enjoy the life that you live and the people that you're around, that's great. I just differ from that thought process. I want to put myself around people who align maybe more with what I value and kind of where I'm at. And I want to take the big international trips. I want to go see the things out there. But in order to do that, you got to have some money. So you got to bust your tail to get yourself in a position to be able to experience those things. Like, I'd love to go sip on a fucking coffee mountainside and somewhere like Iceland on the side of a damn mountain and just view the mountains and the scenery, or Switzerland or Italy, Europe, you name it, whatever, right? Without it, you can't just go do those things. So for me, I think it's twofold. Like, I surround myself with good people, and that matters because I'm wealthy in that regard. But does wealth apply to, is it one line, or can wealth be multiple lines?
Oh, I think it could be multiple lines. I wasn't trying to say that it's
No,
not.
I know. I'm just asking the question, like, to hear your thoughts, right? Like, I'm not saying what you were saying was off pace.
So I think my point for that, real quick, was just more so I think that we tend to just focus more on the fact that wealth is just a concept of currency.
Sure.
Versus we can be wealthy in a lot of other regards too. But we tend to let the currency factor be the forethought and on the forefront, which, more often than not, whether you have it or don't have it, and even if you're fairly wealthy or well off enough to live every day, we always have that thought as people that we don't have enough. We always need more, which is great, but also can be somewhat detrimental depending on how you go about it, because you can hold yourself back and or create more problems for yourself. But that's a different topic. I think, you talk about, being materialistic and things like that, which made me think a little bit. And I would say I didn't used to be materialistic. And I'm not saying that I am materialistic, but and you guys may not, but I wouldn't say I had it all, right? But everything that I owned, essentially, I got rid of it all. I had to start completely over as an adult. So going from having all of my things to basically giving up all of my things and starting over, everything that I do own, everything on these walls, on these shelves and everything, hold more value to me now than before.
Sure.
Because I've been without it. I've had to start over. So I don't necessarily think and believe that I am a materialistic person. I just think that I value and appreciate it more because I know what it's like to lose it all.
Sure.
But mind you, I also live in a very carefree thing where I don't need things. So I wouldn't say I'm materialistic.
Sure.
I just hold on to the value of what I have and its significance because I know I can look at it and I see, for me, I worked for it. I busted my ass to earn that paycheck, to be able to pay for that.
That's
and
right.
now I have that. So it's more like a nod to myself, like you did it, you got it, you built yourself back up.
Yeah.
But, then it's you dive into it and everything, and you start thinking about, am I really wealthy and stuff? And, I've lost my fair share of people and had my fair share of, I used to have a big circle and everything. So I lost people in regards to, my circle is very small now.
Yeah.
So didn't
Same.
morbidly lose people, but then I've also morbidly lost people where that changed the way that I thought about wealth and everything too. So like my circle has become smaller, not because those people that were in my life at that point in time don't have relevance. A lot of it is, we grow apart, we're on different paths, we're doing different things, and their journey is not my journey. And I need to do and focus on my own things and where I want to be and who I want to be.
Yeah.
And in doing so, my concept of wealth, so to speak, changed. My concept of being mortal and immortal changed over time. So it's just a way to, I think I try to look at things from a different perspective and really, sometimes, which and we're proving now that I really think about things in an unorthodox way, and it's very
it's
his
not a bad
brain
thing,
is
though.
interesting.
No, that's not a bad thing, though.
I don't think it's a bad
not.
thing.
And
it's just a lot of people don't tend to get it.
Yeah, and you know what? It's an important thing to note, and that's probably why your circle is smaller.
Maybe
these days is because people don't. If they don't get it, they probably don't try to understand.
Yeah,
and that is probably the downfall of it.
That's a fair point.
And the thing of it is too is I was saying this earlier a little bit is I know I dove into the currency side of the equation earlier. I'm going to dive into the other side. That's why I say it's twofold, because wealth to me, if you didn't have the people to enjoy it with or to provide things to in the future, what in the hell is it for? Like
to add more significance to it.
Right. Yeah. Like to me, like what is it even for? Why does it exist? Why do we let it control so much of ourselves if we're just not going to allow it to be a tool for people to use as a benefit? Like, so then you got to flip it back to the other side.
Yeah.
Like, I can sit here and chill with my circle and we have nothing. I could do that all day, every day, and I got no problem with that at all.
But there's going to be a piece of you and me that eat us up like we could be doing more.
That always. And I have that fire that, like, it is a part of me that no matter what. You should
probably go to the doctor and get that checked out.
Yeah. It squirts out of my butt.
We'll talk about that after the episode.
That could be the IBS. I know I referenced this maybe a month ago, but it could be the IBS.
Insatiable bitch syndrome?
You really are a bastard. You really are a bastard sometimes.
But
is insatiable a word?
I don't give a fuck.
Either way, it still landed how you wanted it to.
It struck the chord, all right?
But no, it's a double-edged sword because,
double-edged scythe.
Hey, that'd be kind of cool. Do you imagine Darth Maul with like a double-edged scythe?
Actually, there is one of those. There is a double-edged,
double-ended
scythe.
That'd be cool. But no, I honestly, You know, it is interesting because I think, you know, you're right. It's important to have both sides of the equation for sure. You've got to surround yourself with good people because if you do things alone, you're not going to make it. You got to have community.
No, and I think you and me have both had our moments where we have fell into that trap, so to speak, of trying to deal with things on our own.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that is completely different than you needing time for yourself.
Yeah.
Well, I want to make that very apparent. Now, there are definitely times when you need time for yourself. You need to process, 100%. Grieve, deal, and game plan, obviously.
It's important. And if you don't have those skills, I would practice them. It's going to get you a long way. It's easier said than done, but give it a shot.
It takes time. And obviously, or not obviously, honestly, you're always continuing to grow and develop those skills. You're never fully, you got it down. It's a continuation. But it's interesting because, you know, you sit there and you say, I need time for myself or whatever, but then you fall into this void of trying to do and carry the weight of everything yourself. That's where, in my experience, I have learned that things tend to fall more apart and things tend to fall more to the wayside. Mm-hmm. You lose the importance of what is important and the significance of what is important because you're too focused on what you don't need to be focused on. Intentionally. Most of the time it's unintentional, but that really, you know, kind of sways with where your momentum goes. Yeah. And I think, you know, that just falls back into the mortality of it and human nature is sometimes we get lost and we get, you know, a little confused and our sight gets a little blurry on what we need to focus on. And you know, we talked about a lot of times people tend to forget that wealth is more than just currency. You know, we lose sight of and focus on the importance of things and the significance of even the smaller things versus the grand scale.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, sometimes you have to walk alone. It doesn't mean that you've left your community. But think about it from a sense where you and we have a compound or we have a space of our own. I need to clear my head and go walk alone and walk in it. And you take that and you scale it and you kind of think, oh, you know, this year I've gone through a big life change this year. And you're engaged, not in an overbearing way. Like, you know, well, not yet, but no, you're engaged in knowing with what's going on in my life. You're not harping on me to make it so that I don't have to walk alone. There are things that I have needed to do as a person while walking alone to correct and fix and change some things about myself. And also just take into consideration what happened and the magnitude of how it's going to impact me and my life and moving forward. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that I'm still not walking beside you, though, or have you in my community. People sometimes get lost in that, and they think that, oh, you know, just because I'm taking some time for myself, I'm turning away from these people. No, I'm processing. I'm going through it. But you've been engaged, and when we've spent time together, it's been... Let's live life. Let's have fun. Let's go get new experiences and let's dive into
that brings up a good point. And you've gone through your fair share of things, as have I, right? Yeah. We both can attest to that. I think being in that situation in that moment in time, it is very easy when you finally do come to that realization that you need to figure some stuff out yourself, where you kind of psych yourself out. It's that a little bit of reverse psychology, right? Where you tell yourself, I need to figure this out as a man or a woman or whatever, as a person, as an individual. I need to figure out X, Y, and Z, whatever they may be. And I need to do that for myself, by myself.
Yeah.
But I think in that situation and in that moment in time, we tend to, in saying that and doing that, reverse psychology, we tell ourselves we need to focus on ourselves, that we tend to kind of push away the people that are close to us and that are in our corner.
That's right.
Instead of treat it like I need to work on X, Y, and Z for myself. But while I do that, I can still be there for you. That doesn't necessarily mean that I can be who you need me to be, because I need to work on who I am, but I can still be there for you. I can still support you. I can still, be your friend, and
right.
albeit that's also as simple as saying, hey, I'm going through, and I don't even necessarily have to tell you, but I'm going through some things. I have to deal with and focus on myself in terms of some of the things that I'm trying to work through and also grow through, but I need to do it myself. So I'm letting you know up front, but also I'm still going to be there for you. It may seem different. The dynamic may seem a little off, but it's only because I'm doing something that I need to do for me. But having that simple dialect up front and that simple discussion goes a long way, because we tend to just say, I need to work on myself and figure myself out. We have that conversation in our head, and then that's where it ends. And then everything else just falls at the wayside, and then,
And if it goes uncommunicated, your community feels it.
And then they're like, what the fuck did I do wrong? Why are they being shady towards me? But
that's why they say communication is key, folks.
It is. It's not, but the thing with that, though, is you also need to communicate with yourself.
You can.
You don't need to carry the weight of everything and figure everything out right then, right there.
That's right.
Take your time. Take it step by step. Grovel in it. Figure it out.
Yeah.
Let's get down and dirty. Be a little messy with it, because you got to figure it out. You got to work through it. You got to deal with it. You got to deal with the emotions that come with it. You got to deal with the thought processes, because those are going to change. And your daily routine, your daily structure, your daily hunger is going to change in a sense as you continue to process and grow through whatever you're going through.
Yeah. See, communication is it's funny that way, because it's a little twofold, right? Like, if I needed to take care of something by myself, if I came to you and I said, just similar to how you said it a few minutes ago, hey, bro, I'm going through this. I want you to know that, one, I'm okay.
Which he has.
2, it's not that I don't want to talk to you about it. It's more or less that when I'm with you, I want to be present. And I know that I can talk to you. But this is something that I have got to just work on for me. To me, that's clear as day. And to me, it's a respect thing on the back end. Like, okay, if that's what you need, I got you. And then on the flip side of that, there are going to be times in between where it's like, hey, these thoughts are bombarding my mind. Can you help me sound this out? People don't realize that, like, you don't always have to give all the details. You just need to concisely communicate. And then when the time is right, you can then let go of what some of those details are as they bombard your mind and you need help sounding some things out. Me personally, I'm one of those people. I'll let 1,000 thoughts infiltrate my mind, and sometimes I need to just allow myself to digress for a little bit, or to just spit it all out, because sometimes it may not make a boatload of sense as I'm thinking it, and then when I say it, it doesn't make sense. But when you're allowing me to free flow and you're allowing me to riff, I call that sounding it out, and I'm going to throw up some air quotes, because to me, the more I can talk about it, I'll hone in the thought and the way that I'm thinking to where it makes more sense and I start to get clarity. And so we've had many of those conversations. And sometimes that's when you can lean on your community, or lean on your therapist, or lean on a journal, whatever it is that you do to communicate with yourself or with your community of people. I think that having that, dang, this water's making me burp a little bit. Sorry, excuse me. No, that having that space is important, and I think that you need to have it in your life, and that's why community is important. And two, the communication with said community is important too.
Dude, I don't ever think I've seen in person word vomit until just then. I don't think it's the water. I think it's just word vomit.
It is word vomit. No, but well, it might be all that cheese we ate earlier. Who knows? We made a charcuterie board earlier. Charcuterie board. But no, it's it's important.
I think the last 10, 15 minutes, whatever it was that we just spent talking about that, I think that kind of, answers the question that as mortals, we have our own sense of immortality. We have our own sense of construct and time and appreciation, and also, disappreciation, dislike for the things, certain things. Because I'll be honest, there are some things that I don't like. I don't like when I go into those spells and moments and stuff where I start to question myself and my sanity and my methods and whatnot. But the flip side to that is, if it wasn't for those times and those situations in my life where I felt like I was going through the absolute worst fucking thing I ever could, I would be who I am today. I would be where I am today had I not gone through that.
Yeah.
Had I not dealt with the emotional side, the physical side, and, dealing with it myself in regards, and also being open to criticism and opinions and thoughts of others.
Yeah.
On the outside looking in, close to me or not so close to me. I think there's value in that. I think there's value in everything.
Sure.
I think if we can start, and it seems to be more so as we get older, we tend to see things from a different perspective, and we tend to, kind of appreciate that everything in some form or regard has value in it. Mm-hmm. We can take something away from it, whether it's good, bad, what to do, what not to do, whatever. I think where it gets tricky is because today, and with social media and cameras and everything at the ready, we tend to be more hesitant to be people. We tend to hold back on being human and being more personable versus putting up a front, putting up a persona, putting up an idea, instead of being true and genuine and being who we are.
That's right. Yeah, because people are so caught up about how a moment looks rather than just letting the moment be.
And the stuff that I gravitate towards, or I relate to, or I appreciate more, is that genuine aspect of everything, because you could always tell when something's genuine, whether it's something said to you, whether it's something done, an action. You can always tell when something's true in its truest form versus when it's bullshit. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not sitting here saying, is that scripted, is that not scripted? I'm not talking about that shit. I'm talking about, you can always tell when someone is being genuine, when someone is being truthful.
Talking about like people
honest.
and their energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
That
for
holds
sure.
more weight. That carries more value to me than anything. Because and even, not just you, but whoever it may be, we're having a conversation or whatever. I drop something, and whether my hands are full or not, if you automatically go to grab that and pick that up for me, I appreciate that, total stranger or not. Like, it's that act of nature, and, just something so simple that, wow, that I appreciate the fuck out of you for that. But then there are people, you drop something or whatever, and it's like you flip their whole fucking world upside down when your hands are full. Like, it's just, it's interesting that people are in such different realities, and we forget, that's another little point and tidbit of it, is we forget that everybody else is just doing their own thing and dealing with their own things.
Sure, yeah.
We get so caught up in how it affects us or what it means to us that we don't really see or think about the impact of what it could have on someone else.
Yeah.
Or not. Because maybe we want it to have an impact on someone else, or to mean something to someone else, that we forget it's okay for it not to mean anything or affect them or have an impact on them.
Yeah.
That concept's also really interesting.
No, I mean it is, and I think to that is, with the concept of, what you were talking about, like cameras and all the things being present, like you kind of always have to be on to some degree. And like, I just don't like it. Like it's a lot of pressure. I feel like we lived in a world now where there's a lot of pressure around you to be like kind of in a box, like, because you say the wrong thing, boom.
Yeah.
This person and this group of people just automatically hate you now, or these 5 or 10 people don't like what you have to say anymore. And then it's like when did we get here and how did we get onto this path? Yeah, it's an interesting space.
You said something a minute ago which brought us back to our whole immortality, mortality, and more so the vampire part, right? So
yeah,
we're back on the immortality kick for a quick second. And being a vampire, right?
Mm-hmm.
Long fucking life left ahead of us.
Yeah.
Well, death. We're dead. But long journey, a lot of years ahead of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
That would be great. And I would want to travel, do all the things and everything like that. But even as humans, right? You're talking about, we always have to be on. There are times when I go to the grocery store, or, I have to run to the bank or the gas station or whatever. I'm on autopilot. I am there. I'm physically doing what I need to do, but I'm not there. I'm like tuned out. I'm not paying attention to what's around me. Like, I pay attention to what's around me always just because that's how I am.
Yeah.
But in the sense that I'm on autopilot, and, I'm not consciously trying to be anything. I'm not trying to be myself. I'm not trying to be a certain way. I'm not trying to be on for the cameras that may or may not be there. I'm more so just going through the motions and things like that. So being a vampire, especially for God knows how long, I feel like that would take over. I feel like
being on autopilot.
I feel like you would just you would hit these points and these ruts where you're just, even if humanity or whatever wasn't a thing, being a vampire, you'll make that argument. I feel like you would hit these ruts and everything where you're just on autopilot, where you're just like, oh, I have another day, I gotta do this, whatever. Like, ugh.
Yeah, no, I feel that, and it would be extremely interesting, like what that would look like. Like, so I guess it makes me want to ask you this question: is if you were in that space as an immortal, as a vampire. Like, what would your life look like? What would you want it to look like?
What would I want it to look? I don't think I would want it to look any different than what I'd want my life to look like now, to be honest. I just want to be able to, and I think it's just, it sounds so simple and simplistic. And
I wouldn't work.
Well, I don't, fuck work. Why would I work? Well, you'd have to have money somehow. You'd have to somehow.
Steal it.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I think I'd want my life to be simple. Like, I'd want to have my y'all already call me Dracula, so I want my castle. I want my lair. I want my dungeon, because that's my safe space. That's my creative space. That allows me to be
red
me.
Room.
You need to go to the doctor and get that checked out before you worry about your fucking red room.
Get what checked out?
That fire that you were talking about earlier.
The IBS?
Yeah.
Oh, whatever. Whatever.
Fucking red room. Colorblind. You don't know what color red is.
It's the color of parts of your shirt.
No, this is blue.
Whatever.
No, I would want at a base value, I'd want to have my castle, my dungeon, my lair. And like I said, I'm not a materialistic person, but I appreciate the value in the things that I have. So I'd want the things that are significant and that I'd worked for and I collected and appreciate. And then I think I'd want, my few people in my circle. And other than that, anything after that, I feel like I'm riding that high life. I have the luxuries after that. Like, those are my luxuries. Anything after that is and would be a luxury.
Mm-hmm.
Being the vampire, being immortal, being able to come and go as I please, to travel with ease, and essentially be fucking wealthy to no end because you live forever. It just kind of comes with it. You just assume that being a vampire, you just always have this wealth. How the fuck you got it, I don't know. But, you know, whatever. What about you? What would being a vampire look like for you?
You know,
aside from your red room, leave the fucking red room out of it.
Okay, fine. No, I honestly, you know, I'm a routine-based person, so
you just said earlier you wouldn't be routine with.
No, I'd be a little bit more spontaneous, but I would definitely still have some semblance of it, right?
Like, I would brush your fang every day.
No, I'd probably like space out my years 100 years at a time.
It's a long time.
Like for this 100 years, this is going to be my focus, and this is what I'm going to go do, and I'm going to try to achieve it.
Like what?
And accomplish it.
For example.
Like, so for example, in this 100-year time slot, if I wanted to be the wealthiest and most powerful vampire in all of Australia, I would just go live in Australia and try to do that.
Let's also be honest. If it takes you 100 years to do that, my guy, you need to. You really need to focus on some other things.
But like, I'm just spitballing here.
Okay.
Or
10
like,
years maybe.
But like, I would probably stagger it out like so. Like, oh, in this 100 years, I'm going to focus a lot of time to understand the way Asians live their life in China. And I'm going to say, oh, let me spend the next 10 or 15 years here and study this culture. Let me see, like...
You'd spend a lot more time experiencing things.
Yeah, like exposing myself to the world and what it has to offer. And then that way, by the time, let's say, you're 2,000, 3,000-year-old vampire. Let's say I'm some old decrepit bastard that looks like so right now because things didn't change. Not like people say knowledge is power. If you expose yourself to all of that knowledge and you know a boatload of things, I feel like I'd be a really powerful vampire.
Here's where we differ, though, because I would be more spontaneous and I would come and go as I please. So if I wanted to be in Italy today and France tomorrow, I would do it. Because
I'd probably do a little bit of that.
But in 100 years... Italy, France, America, it's going to be different. It's not going to be the same Italy, France, and America.
I know. Well, I'm not saying I'm going to go sit at a freaking like Buddhist community or something.
Can you imagine you being a monk?
And just like study it for like 50 years straight. Like I would come and go as I please.
Show up next week in next week's episode dressed as Avatar.
Well, hold on. The Last Airbender or you want me to Blue Man group my body up and come in here with like that?
Yes.
Okay, no. But no, I would kind of come and go as I please, but I'd want to experience all these different things over time and like just kind of expose myself to it. I think that would be cool.
I mean, it would definitely be cool to be a vampire. I don't know that I'd want to be one for the rest of my life.
Yeah, you personally, would you prefer to be a werewolf or a vampire?
Don't get me wrong, I have a soft spot for werewolves. That's my favorite, like, animal or whatever you want to call it.
Just a wolf in general.
Just a wolf in general. But why I think as I've gotten older, I think I would lean more towards the vampire side because I like the gothic cathedral-like nature of it, so to speak, like very Victorian, very, stylistic. Not that werewolves and things can't be, but werewolves tend to be more in the thought process rugged. Not that I'm not, but
they're also very nature-driven.
I am very nature-driven. I wouldn't want to have to operate on now. It goes into the concept of, daylight ring or not. I wouldn't want to have to operate under the presumption of a time clock with the moon and whatnot.
Yeah.
But then again, if we don't have daylight rings, I'm operating under the fucking moon anyways.
Yeah.
So I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't.
I feel you.
Either way, I'm dead. Does it matter?
No, I guess not. But no, I mean, it's a great point. It's all around a great topic. And I like how, we started there. And we were able to kind of take it into deeper meaning and connect
into its own thing.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. And that's what this show's all about. ladies and gentlemen.
This show has we don't know what the fuck we're doing.
Oh, whatever.
There's
a lot of creativity behind it, and like there's a lot of ways that we'll stage some of these conversations and we'll bring it all together with our main points and key things here, and you kind of see what we're doing and kind of get into it. But curious out there for all the folks who are listening, vampire, werewolf, which one would you be? Where do you fall? Which one would you want to do?
I mean, honestly, I think most people would be vampire over werewolf. Let's be honest. We'd have to make it interesting for them to want to be a werewolf over a vampire.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but I'm just curious, like, where people would vote. Because some people actually fuck with the other side more, I guess. I don't know.
Don't get me wrong. I love wolves. I love werewolves. I think they're very fascinating, and especially the way that they survive, because they're those kind where you're either in a pack and in a group, or you're all alone. There's no in between.
Yeah.
But they survive. They adapt. Their adaptability, I think, is what's intriguing to me. But I don't know. I'd like to be both, just to see. I need to
hybrid.
I need to try it out. Do need to be a hybrid. Let me be a hybrid.
That would be cool, wouldn't it?
That'd be
pretty fucking cool.
That'd be.
You get to take your pick.
Yeah. What day I want to do what?
That's badass. I'm all for it. But no, I would honestly, I'd be a vampire myself.
Yeah.
I have the built-in canines already. Like, I have pretty sharp teeth as it is, and I've always loved, like, anytime I've watched any of those supernatural shows, I've always just thought vampires were cooler. All of the different variants and versions of them, I'm like, they're just cooler, in my opinion. Like, werewolves are badass. I think that there's a lot of cool things, and I love watching the shows and whatnot that are all about werewolves, but vampires just take it for me.
Yeah,
you can kind of dabble into more stuff. I feel like
I think a vampire is overall kind of more so the thought after, like, spooky Halloween kind of thought.
Wolves just carry like a majestic, like,
there's
piece to
lot.
them.
I think when you think of vampire, you have this. Everyone seems to have the same kind of overarching thought process as to what a vampire is for the most part. Dracula. You don't necessarily go to like Vampirediaries or like Twilight or things like that. It's just you tend to go to the more that,
Bella,
like,
where the hell have you been, Loca?
you tend to stray more on that Victorian kind of, centuries old, like, the history and stuff behind it. Yeah. Whereas a werewolf, when we sit here and we talk about werewolves, even me and, my love for wolves, I've sat here and I've tried to be like, where do I pinpoint werewolves? Every time we talk about vampires, I think Dracula. When we talk about werewolves, you've got Teen Wolf, you've got the different kinds of wolves in like Vampire Diaries, you've got the different kinds of wolves in like Van Helsing and things. Like, you don't have one definitive, or like Wolfman or whatever. That's a throwback. But you don't have one definitive, at least for me. I don't know, maybe I just don't know enough about wolf history or werewolf history or whatever. But I don't feel like we have enough of a generalized thought as to one particular species of werewolves in history.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I haven't really thought about it. Yeah, but they are cool, and no slight at them though.
No,
like that. Like, every time I've seen them on TV or anything like that, they're really cool. I have a favorite of the best portrayed on TV. Like, to me personally, the ones that were in Twilight were the best wolves that we've gotten on TV.
Well, see, I actually like Van Helsing as a wolf.
That it's cool. I've seen it. It's pretty cool.
But I think I like obviously the way that he looks. But I think his storyline and everything, him forgetting, also I think that movie is also underrated. But then you also talk about like Wednesday, the wolves in Wednesday with Enid, and then when Wednesday takes on that role of werewolf, I think that's interesting too.
Yeah,
it's a little different. But we challenge you guys, and we'll poll you, whatever. Vampires or werewolf, whether you lean more vampires or not. How about you tell us why you would choose vampire and or werewolf? And with your why, tell us what you would choose to do with that immortality. Why you would choose them and what you would choose to do with that persona. Absolutely. But like and subscribe, follow, rate, comment down below if you like it or don't like our episode. We care, but we don't care.
That's right. Well, this was a Halloween episode.
Halloween, spooky season.
So happy Halloween to everybody out there.
And if
to
any
all
of you
the
did
kiddos.
Dress up like vampires or werewolves,
send us some pics.
Send us
some pics of the costumes. I think that'd be cool. And happy Halloween to everybody out there. All the kiddos. Enjoy the holiday. Get all jacked up on candy and ruin your parents' evening. Also, I know it's a couple of days from now, but just a quick shout out. Be my grandma's birthday, and I know my grandma's out there listening, so happy birthday, Grandma.
Oh, Lord,
Love
Grandma
you.
Listens?
Mm-hmm. Grandma listens.
Sorry, Grandma.
Hey, she supports, bruh.
I appreciate the support. I'm sorry for some of the things that I said.
It's all right. She don't give a shit. And honestly, I'm not making a joke. Like, I feel for her, but she wouldn't remember anyway. She has dementia. So she doesn't.
You know who else has
she
dementia?
Doesn't remember.
My girlfriend.
She do. She do. But she wouldn't remember half the stuff we said anyways, but she does know enough to where she remembers a little bit to listen. But if not, people around her listen, and she'll sit there and listen. So she supports as she can, but I do still think it's important to note and say I love you and happy birthday.
Hey, we also love you guys and appreciate you guys that
Absolutely.
have tuned in and continue to tune in. Just if you can hit that like button and subscribe button, we'd appreciate it because it helps out a lot more than you think. But
yes, sir.
We got more content coming your way, more episodes in the works.
Mm-hmm.
So happy Halloween, trick or treat, do anything that we wouldn't do. There's not a lot that we wouldn't do, but good luck. I'll see you in the next one.
Absolutely.